There's a secret weapon in pest control that professionals have been using for years, and for some reason, almost nobody talks about it. I'm not talking about those chemical sprays you grab at the hardware store that barely make a dent in the problem. I'm talking about something that can take out an entire wasp colony from half a mile away without you ever getting within striking distance. Something that won't harm a single honeybee, won't poison your pets, and costs less than a decent lunch. The pest control industry doesn't exactly broadcast this method, and once you understand why, you'll realize you've been fighting wasps the hard way your entire life. Let me take you back to 3 days ago. I was standing in a pole barn that looked something out of a nightmare. The homeowner who called me sounded exhausted over the phone. Every year, she said, we fight the same battle. Every single year they come back worse than before. When I arrived and stepped into that barn, I understood immediately. The rafters were alive with movement. Shadows flickered and darted across the wooden beams. Dozens of paper nests hung from every corner, some fresh and small, others massive and pulsing with activity. My assistant, Mackenzie, stepped in behind me, and I heard her breath catch. "Look at that right there." I pointed to a nest the size of a football, hanging directly above an old tractor. Wasps circled it in a hypnotic pattern, their bodies catching the afternoon light streaming through the barn's side panels. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. "That'll tear you up." Mackenzie moved closer, her eyes scanning the ceiling. "There's more over here, and up there. Oh my gosh, there's one forming right now." She was right. In the corner near a bare bulb, several wasps were working together, their bodies moving in synchronized precision as they used their saliva to construct the papery walls of what would soon become another fortress. Nature is incredible until it decides to set up camp exactly where you don't want it. The homeowner emerged from the house, wiping her hands on a towel. "I've tried everything," she said, frustration evident in every word. "Sprays, traps, calling different companies. They come out, they knock down the nests, and 3 weeks later, we're back to square one. I'm tired of being afraid to walk into my own barn." I nodded because I'd heard this story 100 times before. People think wasps are just a nuisance you have to live with, something you battle every summer and accept as part of owning property. But here's what most people don't realize. You're not just fighting the wasps you can see. For every nest hanging in plain view, there's an entire infrastructure you're missing. The foragers bringing food back, the scouts searching for new building sites, the queens preparing to establish satellite colonies. When you knock down a visible nest, you're barely scratching the surface. It's like cutting the top off a weed and wondering why it grows back. That's where the secret method comes in, the one that changes everything. We started by counting the nests. 1 near the door, 2 more by the lighting fixtures, 3 clustered around the far corner, another hiding in the shadows of a rafter we almost missed entirely. 6 major nests, probably 7 if you counted the one just beginning to form. Hundreds of wasps, maybe thousands. If we approached this the traditional way, we'd be here for hours, suited up head to toe, risking stings, creating chaos, and still not solving the underlying problem. The wasps that weren't at the nest during our assault would return, find their home destroyed, and immediately begin rebuilding nearby. It's an endless cycle. But I had a different plan, something that would eliminate not just these nests, but the entire wasp population in the area, something that would prevent them from coming back next season. The homeowner watched as I pulled out 2 simple items from my truck, a bottle of apple juice from the dollar store and a container of pure boric acid. She looked confused, maybe even skeptical. I get that reaction a lot. "Is this going to take care of all of them?" she asked, glancing between the innocent-looking apple juice and the rafters buzzing with activity. "Not just all of them," I said. "Every forager within half a mile, every wasp that's out hunting right now and planning to come back here, every scout looking for a place to build tomorrow. This method doesn't just kill the wasps you can see, it eliminates the entire operation. Here's how it works, and here's why it's so devastatingly effective. Wasps are attracted to sugary substances, especially in late summer and fall when their natural food sources start to decline. Apple juice is like a beacon to them. They can detect it from incredible distances, and once they find it, they can't resist. But here's the genius part. They don't just drink it themselves. They carry it back to the colony to feed the larvae, the queen, the other workers. It becomes integrated into the entire social structure of the nest. Now add boric acid to the equation. Boric acid is a naturally occurring compound that's absolutely lethal to insects in any dosage, but it doesn't kill instantly. That delayed action is crucial. A wasp can consume the boric acid mixture, fly back to the nest, distribute it to others, and then the poison works through the entire colony like wildfire. Within hours, nests that seemed impenetrable are collapsing from the inside. The beauty of this approach is that the wasps do all the work for you. They become the delivery system for their own destruction. And honeybees? They won't touch it. Their feeding preferences are different. They're focused on nectar and pollen from flowers, not fermented fruit juice. You can literally place these bait stations next to beehives, and the honeybees will ignore them completely, while every wasp in the vicinity zeroes in. That's the safety margin that makes this method revolutionary. We're not carpet bombing the ecosystem. We're using surgical precision to target exactly the species causing problems. I mixed the solution right there in the barn. 2 tablespoons of pure boric acid into a half-gallon of apple juice. The powder dissolved almost immediately, turning the juice slightly cloudy. Then came the setup. Take an empty soda can, pour a small amount of the mixture inside, and add a stick that extends from the bottom to just above the rim. The stick serves as a ladder for the wasps. They land on the rim, climb down the stick, drink their fill, and climb back out. You don't want them to drown. Dead wasps floating in the liquid will deter others from approaching. You want them alive long enough to carry the poison home. "How many of these do we need?" Mackenzie asked, watching me set the first station on a workbench away from where pets might knock it over. For a property this size, 5 or 6 stations, strategically placed, 1 near each major nest and a couple more around the perimeter of the barn. The wasps will find them within an hour. By tonight, the whole network will be compromised. The homeowner looked doubtful. I understood. It seems too simple, too easy. People are conditioned to think that killing pests requires dramatic action, heavy chemicals, expensive equipment. But sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that work with nature's own systems rather than against them. Wasps have evolved to be incredible foragers and communicators. We're just hijacking that evolutionary advantage and turning it into their weakness. But we weren't done yet. While the bait stations would handle the long-term elimination, we still had active nests full of aggressive wasps to deal with. Leaving them alone wasn't an option, not with the homeowner needing to use this barn daily. So we moved to Phase 2, direct nest elimination. Most people would reach for a can of wasp spray at this point. And sure, we had our professional-grade version ready, but I wanted to show Mackenzie and the homeowner that there are multiple approaches depending on the situation. For nests that aren't near electrical components, one of the most effective and safest methods is something everyone already has under their kitchen sink: dish soap and water. "You're kidding," the homeowner said when I pulled out the bottle of Dawn. "That's gonna kill wasps?" Watch this. I grabbed a 2-gallon pump sprayer, filled it with water, and added a generous squeeze of dish soap. The science is simple, but devastating. Wasps breathe through their exoskeleton, through tiny openings called spiracles. When soapy water hits them, it penetrates those openings and essentially drowns them from the inside. Their breathing shuts down. It's quick, it's effective, and it uses materials so non-toxic you wash your dishes with them. Mackenzie pumped up the sprayer, building pressure. The stream could reach 20 feet, maybe more, perfect for hitting nests in high rafters without needing a ladder. "Which one should I hit first?" she asked, scanning the ceiling. "Not that one," I said quickly, pointing to the nest wrapped around a light fixture. "See where that is? That's electrical. Water and electricity don't mix. We'll use a different product for that one." She redirected her aim to a large nest hanging freely from a beam about 12 feet up. Wasps circled it lazily, unaware of what was coming. "Ready?" Remember, once you start spraying, don't stop. Keep that trigger pulled until the nest is soaked. The moment the stream hit, chaos erupted. Wasps dropped from the air like stones. The nest itself darkened as the soapy water saturated the paper structure. More wasps poured out, trying to defend their home, but they flew directly into the spray and fell. Within 30 seconds, the ground beneath the nest was carpeted with dead and dying wasps. Mackenzie kept spraying, methodical and thorough, until the nest dripped and no movement remained. "They're dropping like flies," she said, a note of amazement in her voice. I took the sprayer and moved to another nest on the opposite side of the barn, this one closer to ground level on a ladder someone had left leaning against the wall. The soap and water method is incredibly satisfying when it works, watching the immediate results, but it does have limitations. It takes longer to kill than commercial insecticides, and there's always the issue of where you can safely use water. But for most situations, it's more than adequate. The real challenge was the nest near the electrical junction box and the ones wrapped around the light fixtures. For those, I brought out the professional tool, PT Wasp Freeze 2, a product rated non-conductive up to 47,000 volts. This isn't something you typically find at general stores, but it's what professionals rely on when dealing with wasps in sensitive locations. The active ingredients immobilize wasps instantly, freezing them mid-flight, and it can be used safely around electrical components without risk of arcing or shorting. I handed the can to Mackenzie. "This one by the light. You ready?" She aimed and pressed the trigger. The spray shot out in a focused stream, hitting the nest dead center. Wasps fell immediately, their wings seizing up, their bodies going rigid before they hit the ground. It was like watching someone press a pause button on nature. Within seconds, the entire nest was silent. Dead wasps littered the floor beneath the light fixture. "That's insane," the homeowner whispered. We moved methodically through the barn, taking down nest after nest. The soap and water for the accessible ones away from electrical sources, the wasp freeze for the ones in dangerous locations, and all the while the bait stations sat quietly on their perches. Already I could see wasps beginning to investigate them. One landed on the rim of a can, antennae twitching, probing the liquid inside. It climbed down the stick, drank, and flew away. Mission accomplished. That wasp was now a flying time bomb, carrying poison back to its colony. But we still weren't finished. Taking down active nests is satisfying, but it's reactive. The real mastery of wasp control is prevention, making it so they never want to build there in the first place. That's where the third component comes in, Delta Dust. Delta Dust is a waterproof insecticidal powder that lasts up to 8 months outdoors. You apply it to the areas where wasps typically build, the eaves, the rafters, the corners, the spaces around light fixtures. When a wasp lands on a treated surface to begin construction, the dust adheres to their body. They carry it back to any existing nest, spreading contamination. But more importantly, the residual effect means that any wasp investigating that spot in the future will encounter a hostile environment. They'll move on to somewhere else, somewhere that isn't this barn. Using a bulb duster, I puffed clouds of the fine white powder into every corner, every gap in the rafters, around every light fixture. It's barely visible once it settles, but to wasps, it's a no trespassing sign written in chemical language they can't ignore. Combined with the bait stations eliminating active populations and the nest removals clearing out current residents, this three-pronged approach creates a wasp-free zone that will last for months. The homeowner watched us work, asking questions, taking mental notes. "So the bait stations, how long do I leave those out?" "Until you stop seeing activity. Maybe a week, maybe 2. You'll know it's working when you stop seeing wasps flying around during the day. The foragers will disappear first, then any remaining nest activity will cease. After that, you can remove the stations, but keep checking on them. If you see wasps returning next spring, set the stations out early before they establish new colonies." And the Delta Dust? Reapply every 6 to 8 months or after heavy rain exposure in areas that aren't fully covered. But honestly, with this combination, you shouldn't have problems for a long time. She looked around the barn, at the removed nests, at the dust settling into invisible protection, at the bait stations doing their silent work. For the first time since we arrived, she looked relaxed. "I wish I'd known about this years ago. All the money I've spent, all the stress every summer." That's the thing that frustrates me most about this industry. These methods exist, they're proven, they're effective, but they're not expensive, and they empower property owners to handle their own problems without calling for service every few weeks. There's no incentive for companies to teach customers how to permanently solve wasp issues. It's better for business to keep people dependent, keep them scared, keep them calling for help. But I didn't get into pest control to build a business model on people's fear and ignorance. I got into it because I hate seeing families unable to enjoy their own property. I hate hearing stories of kids getting stung, of people having allergic reactions, of outdoor gatherings being ruined by aggressive insects. And I especially hate when the solutions are simple, but hidden behind industry gatekeeping. As we packed up our equipment, several wasps that had escaped the initial assault buzzed around the barn, confused, searching for nests that no longer existed. But they'd find the bait stations. They wouldn't survive the night. Mackenzie pulled off her gloves and looked at me with that satisfied expression you only get from a job done right. "Think that'll hold?" she asked. "For this season? Absolutely. Next spring, if she sets out bait stations early, they won't even try to establish here. They'll move on to easier territory." The homeowner walked us to our truck, already planning to pick up supplies to maintain the treatment herself. That's the goal, not creating customers for life, but creating property owners who understand how to control their own environment. Give people knowledge, and they'll take care of the rest. Now, I need to emphasize something important. While these methods are effective, wasps, especially yellow jackets and hornets, can be incredibly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. A disturbed nest can send hundreds of aggressive defenders after you in seconds. If you're dealing with large nests, multiple colonies, or species like yellow jackets that are notoriously aggressive, consider professional help. Getting stung multiple times isn't just painful, it can trigger serious allergic reactions even if you've never had problems before. But for most homeowner situations, the combination of bait stations, direct nest removal with appropriate tools, and preventative dust application will solve 95% of wasp problems. The key is understanding the entire life cycle, not just reacting to visible nests. 3 days after our visit to that barn, I called the homeowner to check in. "Haven't seen a single wasp," she reported, genuine happiness in her voice. "It's like they just vanished. I can't believe how well it worked." That's the secret method that professionals don't advertise. It's not glamorous. It doesn't require expensive equipment or specialized training. It just requires understanding how wasps operate and using that knowledge against them. The bait stations eliminate the population systematically, from the inside out. The direct nest removal handles immediate threats. The preventative dust ensures they don't return. Together, it's devastatingly effective. Half a mile of wasp elimination from a few dollars worth of apple juice and boric acid. Nests neutralized with dish soap and water. Long-term prevention from a waterproof powder. These aren't industry secrets anymore. Now you know exactly what professionals know. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Because I can guarantee you this, the next time you see a wasp nest forming on your property, you won't look at it the same way. You'll see opportunity. You'll see a problem with a simple, elegant solution, and you'll handle it with confidence instead of fear. That's the real power we're talking about here. Not just killing wasps, but understanding them well enough that they're no longer a source of anxiety. They're just another manageable aspect of property ownership. And honestly, that peace of mind is worth more than any pest control contract.